15 seconds behind, and then I can start talking. Okay. There we go. All right. What is the best piece of advice you've heard in real estate?
For me, it's actually came from one of my mentors. I'll give a quick shout out to Sammy Mafar. And the advice was to never bet against New York. You know, we connected with landlords and developers left and right during COVID. My business exploded during COVID. And the conversation was always like, all right, we're losing everything to Florida. Everyone's going to move to Florida. Everyone's moving to Miami. Businesses, people, that's where the money's going. Fast forward 5 years, rents are higher than ever, sales prices are higher than ever, occupancy is higher than ever, demand is higher than ever. I'm a firm believer. Don't bet against New York. It's going to continuously see higher highs, and it's been fun enjoying not being able to time this market because it's just a consistent climb.
Keeps you on your toes. And
That's
what's the worst piece of advice you've heard?
I think the worst piece of advice, that my partner Robert and I would have gotten at Real New York is if it's not broken, don't fix it. We constantly have to evolve as a mid-sized brokerage. The industry is evolving. New York is evolving. The laws changed. 2019 rent laws was a huge upheaval for our business. And if we just maintained course, if we didn't consistently try to reinvent Real New York, if we didn't consistently grow the business and find different arms of revenue, like our commercial division, like our sales division, like our rental division, like our marketing division, then we would have felt some serious pain.
Yeah, I think that's really important because things do change so quickly. I tried this out the other day. I'm in the process of considering putting my condo on the market, and even though I don't want to give up that great rate I have, but I have a life event. I need to make a change, and it's fine. And actually, it's probably better now because there'll be less competition, and I'll probably get a little bit of a better deal than I would if the rates dropped a bunch. But
I
what's
imagine you're a
interesting?
good broker.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. So, well, I don't know if it's a good. I have a good broker. I have a broker that's going to save a lot of money on my commission, of course.
Nice.
So happy for that. It's like the only reason I have a license. But what I wanted to try was, speaking of things changing, is I put into ChatGPT. I said I just want to see it act, and I wrote acting as a 30-year top 1% realtor in not only Chicago, but I said my specific neighborhood, and you're like the expert. And I really built it up that this is who you are. You're this top agent. Here's my address. I didn't tell it anything about my condo. I just said, what would you do if you were getting this ready to sell? What would you price it at? When would you price it? Things like this. I was just curious. How close could it get to what I thought would be good advice? And I was shocked. It knew what kind of countertops I had. It knew all sorts of information that I didn't think it would have access to. It seemed to have a pretty good strategy for pricing. It was, I'd have to double check and make sure that
Mhm.
I think it makes sense, but it certainly wasn't far off. If it might have even been right on the money. And I thought, oh boy, things are changing, and I thought, the role of the realtor, the agent, is possibly changing a little as well. And I don't necessarily think it'll replace agents, although I guess it could. It's certainly a possibility. We hope that doesn't
Mhm.
happen, of course, with all of us in this industry, and not me and you needing a job. But the reality is that it is here, and people are going to be typing these kind of prompts into AI. And whether it's good advice or not, people are going to be checking that stuff. So it's interesting, kind of like Zestimate. It's like, whether it's accurate or not, people are looking. And so I always think, how can we leverage that, and what can we do to stay ahead of it? So you're right. Even though the traditional way isn't broke, it actually works really, really well. Boy, things are changing. So what a great thing to say. By the way, my guest today is Lou Adler. He is the co-founder and principal of Real New York, one of New York City's premier mid-size and full-service brokerages. He has overseen the leasing and sales of thousands of apartments with his partner, Rob Romanian, hundreds of millions in sales and major new development projects all across the city. He started in a 300 square foot retail space, and Lewis and Robert, they've grown the business to over 150 agents, incredible, a full marketing division, and over 10,000 exclusive units, which that is the bread and butter for New York. That is amazing. He's known for treating every project like his own, and he specializes in residential leasing, sales, commercial, and office to residential conversions, which is very popular in New York right now. His landlord developer first philosophy has earned him long-term relationships and consistent results in shifting markets. Lewis is driven by creating lasting value for clients and adapting to New York's ever-changing real estate landscape. Please visit him on his Instagram page, which is at Lou Adler. And Lou, welcome to the show.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me, DJ.
Pleasure to have.
I have to ask you a quick question. In regards to that ChatGPT, did it say, DJ, you better discuss it on your podcast? Is there an off-market prompt that we're going to hear at the end? Or
it's funny, yeah, that's a good one. It's funny because I'm going to double check the numbers, but I was a little shocked, and I thought, oh, this is only going to get better, and I thought, okay, that scared me for a moment as somebody who has hundreds of agents here at Gale Realty in Chicago. And I went, uh-oh. And then I realized, well, it still can't solve for relationships. Like it still can't, and who knows, maybe it will one day, but hopefully not. I think then they were all in trouble if it could solve for relationships. But I think it can't really do the face-to-face, eye-to-eye stuff. It can't walk into a property yet and say, I'm going to give you my experience and what I think should be happening. And it can just really evaluate data is really all it can do right now. But still, I think realtors who aren't using or leveraging some of the usefulness of AI are probably missing out. I think there's a lot of cool things you could do. Like I always tell agents, if you're going to a showing, just put that address in and ask it for anything it knows about the area, the property, the neighborhood, the suburb, if it's out, that way. And just what would a potential buyer might want to know about that area. And you can kind of get some useful like trivia facts. And I always think that's fun. So there's lots of things you can do with it. And thankfully for now, it's not taken over our industry, and hope that we're able to, keep our control, because I think the experience that somebody like you has and your team is obviously super important. New York is so complicated, and it is just absolutely such a building by building, unit by unit experience. And it is, you really need somebody to help you navigate those waters. But yeah, let's talk about how'd you get into real estate?
I started, in college, I went to school for hospitality management and business foundations. My first internship was actually with Ian Schrager on the hospitality side, and my goal was to go into hotel development. Ian sat me down and said, quite frankly, you're not going to make the money you want to make going into the hospitality side of things. You're not going to be able to work your way up and buy real estate and one day own a hotel. And he said, I think you should go into real estate development, connected me with a real estate developer that I interned for the following year. And my first job out of college was for the Durst organization. Really cut my teeth there, learned a lot about the business, jumped into the brokerage world about 3 years into working for the Durst organization, where I met my business partner. And after about 2 weeks of dating, we call it, we decided to open up a brokerage, Real New York. And
wow. Funny
enough, I called him last Sunday, and I'm like, wow, after being partners for 13 years, it's crazy we're still friends.
Yeah,
I've heard horror stories, and I do think it's a big part of our secret sauce is that we, through this crazy market, through the constant change of rent laws and real estate laws throughout New York, through COVID, we've just maintained that partnership, maintained that brotherhood, that friendship, and it's really helped us push through some of the harder times.
Yeah, I agree. I have a similar story here. I've been here 14 years, and my boss, who is effectively my partner in other endeavors that we have, I have seen what he has weathered, and I've weathered as well over that time. It's lots of growing pains, and also one thing I realized that I think agents don't often understand is that being a brokerage owner is really a labor of love, and it's almost a service job because
Mhm.
the margins, I guess maybe agents don't always understand, but margins are very slim for owners. It is not the business to get into if you just want to sit, kick back, and collect checks. It is very, very tight because the competition is so fierce. There's so many opportunities. Any one of our agents can leave us at yours at any moment. It's just how it goes. Maybe someday they'll be employees and it'll be different. But for now, it's just, they're getting those recruiting calls every other day, just like our agents. And, it's all about how well we treat and you treat your agents, and understanding there's always somebody that's going to have a higher commission split or lower fees, or,
Mhm.
the promise of some better something or other. And the reality of it is that it's all about the leadership and who can actually help people build a career. And you and your partner have obviously done that. And to get to 150 agents is remarkable, with the amount of competition there is. And you know that. And also people can go off and do their own thing too. They can be their own thing.
Mhm.
And so it's even harder than that. And I think it's so impressive. I love indie brokerages. I think, boy, they are like the American dream, but it's a struggle, and I know it's not. You can't sit back and wait, and it too, like with us, we noticed this last month our productivity was down for our agents. Our agents, they just weren't doing as many deals, and it's like, okay, what can we do to affect that? And it's like, well, they're independent contractors. There's we can't force them to do things. We can just invite them to take advantage of these actions, and help try to motivate them and get them revved up. But it's one of those things where it's like, oh boy, it is tough out there. So I really applaud you for that kind of work. I know I do it firsthand, so I know how challenging it is. But it is also super rewarding when you do
Mhm.
see people build like an amazing career, and you're like, wow, like I had a part in that. So tell us about New York right now. What is the experience? We know during COVID, there was some flight out of the city. Just people wanted to save money, and they could move anywhere, remote working, and obviously that has changed, and people have come back. But what is the state of buying and renting as well in New York right now?
Yeah, what we're seeing is everyone's back in the office at this point.
Yeah,
If it's not 3 days, it's that it's 4 days. I think the goal for local employers are to get everyone back in the office 5 days a week, especially after the summer. So it's really business as usual. There's huge supply constraints in New York during COVID. There wasn't a lot of building. I wanted to discuss with you at some point on this call what we're seeing on the conversion side, because
yeah,
that's really where the inventory is coming from. The office to resi, the hotel to resi, and so on. Because land is just so expensive, you can't pencil out rentals, especially in prime neighborhoods of Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens. It almost only makes sense to go condo. It's really keeping the supply down, which and demand is still high because their companies are still opening up in New York. Companies are still gravitating to New York. There's a huge supply of really high quality office space in New York, and it's been appealing to large tech firms as well, large law firms, large financial firms, and we're constantly seeing new employment letters, people relocating, people starting their first job. It's really beginning to be business as normal since we experienced that huge pop of people coming back to the market from COVID.
yeah. How has the buy and sell side been affected?
So it's funny. People talk about rates all the time in other markets, and quite frankly, New York is just not as affected
Yeah,
by rates. Where once again, it's similar where the product is on the marketplaces, the supply is low, and we're seeing steady demand. We're seeing generational wealth that's paying all cash. We're seeing international clientele, Asian clientele, Middle Eastern clientele paying all cash for condo properties, new development, and it's once again it's higher highs. We're after 2008, the recession, we saw a big drop off. In 2012, the market climbed again, dipped, and then I think we're back to the high side of the market.
yeah, that's great. I thought one thing that you could help provide some guidance on is choosing a brokerage. And I say that because you're a growing brokerage. I'm in the
Mhm.
same boat. We both are always looking for talent. And I mean, every brokerage really is, if they're being honest. But
Yep.
certainly the independent brokerages, that's part of how we stay in business. And I always think that independent broker owners have a slightly different take on it, because they often see through some of the smoke and mirrors that is pushed out there from other of the maybe some of the bigger brokerages who really have a very polished and super aesthetically appeasing kind of presentation. And in reality, you and I know that it's the agent's efforts that are going to dictate their success. And yes, they should work for a
Mhm.
great firm, of course, and they should have great training and great support and great tools. But everyone says they have great support, great training, and great tools. So I'm curious what you tell agents who are out there looking, or what you might suggest to our audience, because I always think you should do an audit. You should do an
Yeah.
audit of the tools you have. You do an audit for your business of the tools you guys provide, and the different services you have. That's what every responsible business owner does. And agents should be doing that too with their brokerage. They should say, hey, is this still the right place for me? So just out of curiosity, if you were an agent, and you were saying, I have a lot of options here, right? I could go other places. I'm sure there's lots of firms that would love to have me. What am I looking for? And I'm curious what comes to mind for you.
Yeah, I think, a lot of the bigger shops are able to give the training similar to the training that we give. A lot of the bigger shops are able to, potentially handhold when an agent first gets into the business, but then what? Right? What are you offering me? What kind of opportunities do you have? Are you giving me listings? Are you giving me leads? I think the gone are the days of, hey, here's your desk, here's your phone, good luck.
Yeah.
The relationships aren't as abundant as they were in the past. So, my business partner and my philosophy is we have to bring the opportunity in. We have to hand it to the agents that are willing to work for it. And if they bring in their own opportunities, we'll make sure to keep the fire going. We like to say, let's keep putting wood on the fire. So if we see momentum, we make sure to continue that momentum with that agent. So, we'll bring in a new development condo and we'll find the agent that's, really putting work into that market or that specialty to like, hey, this opportunity looks perfect for you. We'll interview them internally before we introduce them to a landlord and developer and see how they can leverage that opportunity. We had some of our senior agents speak to the firm yesterday. These are agents that have made millions of dollars throughout the years at Real New York and discussed how they leveraged our platform. One of the agents was talking. I had my first exclusive in Gramercy. Real New York gave it to me. They gave me a shot. And I met a client who didn't want this particular apartment. And they were telling me what they wanted. And I was like, oh my God, you'd be crazy not to see this one. And I walked them over to West 48th Street, showed it to them, closed right away. And, the light went on. Like, I need to leverage these opportunities. Real New York, we put you in front of people. Our goal,
Yeah.
Rob and my goal is to put you in front of people. So I will not hire what we call door openers.
Sure.
If you're looking to just show up, then there's other firms for you. I do believe that's the kind of agent that will be replaced by technology.
Yep.
But if you're here looking to build relationships, looking to connect, looking to stay consistent, my business partner and I will go to hell and back to make sure you're successful.
I, I agree. And I really applaud you for saying that, because I've interviewed many broker owners over the 7 years I've done this show. I have over 700 episodes, and very rarely I can think of maybe one or two other times, and I'm probably not remembering one or two others, but that's about it, for owners that I have talked to that say, hey, we do go out and find deals. We do actually find opportunities for our agents. Most managing brokers and most brokerages in general do not do that. And you know that as well as anyone. And so, yeah, that is a major value add that you are providing, again, to worthy recipients, people who are
Mm-hmm.
actually going to demonstrate, I'm in this, I'm your partner, I want this opportunity, help me. And you guys ultimately work together. But boy, that is a massive thing. So if you are an agent in the New York area and you say that sounds pretty great, and you think that you can add value as well, because Lou and Robert, they're obviously not just handing out deals to anyone, but they are looking always for people to best represent real New York. So yes, you are building your own business as well, but to be able to have certain opportunities presented to you is I that is a rare experience. So congrats to you and your partner. I imagine that keeps lots of interest in your firm from agents, because boy, that is a rare thing. So congrats to you guys. I
Yeah,
love that you're
appreciate
not
that.
just sitting back and seeing what the agents do themselves, but you also are teaching them how to go out and find their own business. So let's talk about how you keep your team motivated. So even though,
Mhm.
yeah, rates aren't really as important in New York as they are maybe elsewhere, and also the rental market being so important in New York, and also being very different. That we should mention how compensation works is quite different in New York. Boston has a slightly similar. Somewhat similar. Chicago is not that way. Here in Chicago, the tenant is usually almost never paying the commission. It's very rare. It would be an unusual case. And in New York, it doesn't. Sometimes the landlord pays, but a lot of times the tenant is coughing up that fee, and that's a challenge. So I am curious, how are you keeping your team motivated? Like, what are you? How are you getting? How are you having them find business?
Yeah, so I think, funny enough, DJ, I'm not sure if you're aware, but there was actually a new
There's a
law that
change.
passed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to call it the Not So Fair Act. The city
Yes.
calls it the
Agreed.
Fair Act. But quite frankly, what they did is they put the onus on the landlord to pay the broker fee.
Oh, that's
Uh,
right. It's completely the other way now. That's right. I forgot. My apologies.
the tenant can still hire an agent. The tenant can still hire an agent to work for them, and in that instance, they would be responsible for paying the fee. But it's pretty amazing what happens in New York. I'm all for finding ways to make the city more affordable. To make sure that there is an affordability component to New York City. Unfortunately, the city doesn't know how to get out of its own way, so they enacted this law, and all the properties that the tenant was paying the fee, the landlord just upped the rent 10% and paid the fee
Sure.
themselves.
Yeah, they got to pay
So
it somehow. So yeah, yeah.
yeah, so instead of the tenant paying the fee once to move into an
They're
apartment, they're
still
paying
paying
it
it. Yeah.
every year,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
their
that's
renewals
a
all from
great
a
point.
higher
And that
rent.
and they're not getting a 10% discount in year two. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's New York City. Once again, they can't get out of their own way. You're seeing also, because of the Fair Act, and how brokers are involved in the New York City rental market. There's less inventory online. There's less transparency. There's less product that the clientele has easy access to. It definitely, in my opinion, was a huge failure on the city side in moving forward with the Fair Act. And unfortunately, the tenant is the one who's feeling the pain, the most pain,
Yeah,
to
I
go
mean,
through.
really, kind of what were they thinking? I understand it's a short-term play for the consumer. Yeah, I guess. I mean, maybe you get a slight discount because you're not coughing up 1 month's rent initially, but you're paying it many times over, because, of course, that's just going to be put into the price, and everyone's going to do the same thing. And then the agent might even get squeezed out altogether, as you were saying. So are you seeing that, where there's a lot of landlords that are just going, I'm going to try this myself now, and try to keep pocket the extra money?
Thankfully, Real New York, we provide a ton of value on the marketing side. We have strong relationships with our landlords, and our business partner and I have been preparing for this. We're actually one of the brokers that were named in the Rebney case against the city to fight against the Fair Act. But we were able to tell our landlords, like, we perform. My business partner and I are landlords. We own properties as well, so we're able
Sure.
to think like landlords and developers. So we just pro forma their properties and said, hey, the tenant was paying us this. You're going to be paying us this, and this is how much we're going to up your rent. And your building is going to be worth more. They're going to be renewing off of that higher rent. So net, you win.
Yep.
And our landlords looked at us and said, thank you, let's go. It
Yeah,
was a
it's
very
just
easy
running the
conversation.
numbers. Yeah, running the numbers. And we should also mention too that in New York, having exclusive access is, boy, that is everything. And you guys do. And you have a ton of inventory, which is also an incredible asset to have as a brokerage owner. You have access to over 10,000 units that, other agents don't. And that is amazing. And I applaud you. I know that game here in Chicago. Exclusive listings are everything as well. And they're not as common here. They used to be. It used to be a kind of a thing, and today it's not. And maybe that's for the better for Chicago, but
Mhm.
certainly it keeps a nice premium on your what you provide to your agents. And it's one of the first questions I get from anyone who is interested in doing leasing. They say, "Do you have what? Tell me about your listings that are off the MLS." And of course,
Mhm.
New York doesn't work the same way, but you guys have a huge inventory, and it's unreal. So my hats off to you. Those are hard, because again, one agent who maybe has a negative experience with one of your landlords, that could tank the relationship possibly. And you're constantly having to keep those relationships strong. And I remember having to do that ourselves. And so, boy, I applaud you guys. You're must be doing some amazing work and hiring some amazing agents,
Yeah.
because that's always the risk there. So, let's talk about scaling a brokerage. So,
Mhm.
this is something that I don't think it's much different than building a team. And even if you're not leaving your brokerage to build your own, a lot of our listeners think about building a team, and essentially that's what you did, and you just put it under your own name, and now you're out there. You have 150 agents strong. So tell me about, what was that process like for you?
You said it right. So how Rob and I did it is, we really wanted to see the agent succeed right off the cuff. We didn't want to see that pain that an agent feels when they're just tossed into an open market. So how we looked at it is we brought in the opportunities on the landlord developer side, and when we had enough opportunities to hire another agent, we did. So we started off with a team of 3 agents, right, that we were working mostly in the Lower East Side, value add product, multifamily rentals, doing a couple hundred rentals a year. And we just grew with those landlords. We met new landlords and developers, continuously, engaged with landlords that were buying properties to show them how we could increase their rent roll. And every time we got more opportunities than we could handle, we hired another agent. So we started off doing it extremely organically. Then, what happened, especially during COVID, is there was a lot of layoffs and a lot of our competition consolidated with bigger firms, and there was a lot of talent on the employee side. So we have over 24 employees that work for us, and they're almost from every brokerage in the city. So we have a plethora of experience that we're able to distribute to our agents and help them leverage the opportunities that we bring in. So how we built our team is extremely organic. We're bootstrapped. We don't have any huge investors. We don't have any huge loans. We literally would bring in an opportunity from the landlord developer side and leverage that for more opportunities. And as we had more opportunities, we'd hire more agents. So the agents really started at specifically staffing the product that we had until we were able to train them and bring the staff in to help train them to bring in their own product.
And that is a very unique way to grow a brokerage. Most brokerages do not start with those kind of opportunities, and many never present those kind of opportunities. And they're just hiring people that they hope can build their own practice without those opportunities. And the fact that you have that is truly remarkable and really unbelievable. I'm somebody who is a recruiter. I'm always looking for talent here, and boy, I can't think of any brokerage here in Chicago that is your size that has those kind of opportunities for agents. So that must be relatively unique in New York as well, I would assume. So congratulations to you. I would hate to compete with you. So I am grateful that you are on the East Coast and I am not. But let's talk about how your agents are building their own production. So,
Mhm.
you're still training them, you're still coaching them, you're still showing them the way, and they're not getting handed everything. So, how do you do that? What have you found that's been effective for keeping your agents out there hustling?
Yeah, we focus on how they can leverage the opportunities that we give them. Right. An example is if we bring in a new development in Gramercy or the Lower East Side, and with the pre-dev work that Rob and I do with that developer and the floor plans and the amenity package, we're able to hit a significant price per square foot. An example is we just finished a new development in the Gramercy area that was about 130 a foot. And that is a number on the rental side that many developers have never seen before. So we work with the agent on that product to say, hey, let's leverage it and look at other developers that are building in the area and be like, hey, you want to get 130 a foot?
Ah,
We
smart.
can show you how to do it. And that really has been, a way for our agents to advance their skill sets, advance their network, and grow their business. And they keep the business that we give them, and then they leverage the business to get more for themselves. And I tell the agents, if you're just looking to live off the land, essentially, if you're just looking to rent the product that we give you or sell the product that we give you, once again, you're not going to make the living that you want. You're not
Right.
going to be able to, especially New York City is an expensive place. New York City is not the kind of place that, you can survive on $40,000-$50,000 a year.
Right.
They have to earn, and they have to earn quick. And Rob, my partner, and I understand that. So we always say, if you're just looking to eat off the land, if you're just looking to work our product, this is not the place for you. You have to build alongside us.
You also I'm really hearing a strong business to business play as opposed to B2C. And I think that just makes all the sense in the world, especially around rentals, because the listings are everything and the exclusivity is everything. And what you're really doing is teaching agents how to go after the developers and you as well, and saying, hey, this is what we did for so and so, and here's what we can do for you. And that is really a mindset shift for a lot of agents, where they are really
Mhm.
focused on the consumer side, where they are focused on, I got to find the tenant. And what as well as anyone in your position, is that when you have the listings, the buyers and the renters show up. They
Mhm.
show up. It makes it much easier. That's why people often prefer to work with either the landlord or an owner, versus a tenant, specifically representing just a tenant, because of course it's all about who has control of the inventory. And so that is really, really a significant shift. For a lot of agents, do not think that way, and they are
Mhm.
just focused on, I got to find a place for this person, and as opposed to, I got to find the place, and then the people will it's much easier to work the other way around. But it's much harder to get those relationships.
Yep.
And that is your bread and butter. And boy, I hope people out there are listening and hearing that. It's like, oh, wait a minute, am I calling on developers? Am I reaching out to investors? Am I reaching out to people who are landlords and saying, what are your pain points around renting? Like, where are you struggling right now? And trust me, every owner, every landlord is struggles at some part of that business. And if you can come in and
Especially with
solve
the
this problem,
rates.
yes,
With the rates where
yes,
they are right now, that is, people don't understand how difficult it is to be a landlord developer in New York City with where the rates are right now. These landlords, they bought properties during COVID expecting to refinance and the rate to be the low fours, maybe five. We're mid fives to mid sixes on a refinance of a multifamily property.
sure.
So the pain that they get from insurance has been seeing new high highs. The pain they get from the New York tax structure and the financing, it's not as sexy to be a landlord as it once was. And at Real New York, we really understand that, and we do what we can to make up for that pain by making sure that they're getting the highest price per square foot possible.
And how do you know, or rather, what is your process for securing good tenants? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, of course, a bad tenant could sour a relationship. And of course, you don't have much control of once somebody moves in. But what are some of the things you look for, or that your agents look for, when they are sourcing to find tenants?
Yeah, so obviously we put a lot of trust in our agent to make sure that they present, the right application to our landlords and make sure that they qualify someone before presenting it to our landlords. But our structure is a little different than most, where we have account managers, intermediaries in between the agent and the landlord that are constantly making sure that there's quality control, that we have all the paperwork in order. We're able to now do biometric screening because of AI. There's been a lot of fake employment letters and pay stubs that we've seen come through, a lot of fake bank statements. So we have fortunately worked with a company called One App that does biometric screening and can actually approve that the bank statements, employment letters are legitimate.
Wow.
It's a very strong tool that we need to have in this new marketplace.
Yeah, I love that. That makes I've never thought of that, and absolutely that. Of course, forgeries are probably easier than ever to do now, and authenticating that is so critical. I will say when you're out there, you are a brokerage that presents opportunities to agents, which again, very rare, very unique, and certainly something that is very sought after by agents who are wanting, to grow and maybe feel like they could use some help in that arena. What do you look for in an agent?
I first off, consistency. I want to, if an agent's in the office before me and after me every day, like I know it's only a matter of time, and then like what always the light bulb moment for me is when I see dots connected that, in my opinion, should not be connected. For example, I hear that an agent met a client in the Lower East Side and ended up renting them or selling them an apartment in Midtown West. I'm like, you listened to your client, you heard what they said, and you zoomed in and say, you know what, you might not be looking in the right place. Have you tried over here? Like when they're able to retarget and really leverage the knowledge that they have. You want space in New York City. You want a clean block. Well, you're probably not going to find in this neighborhood. This might be the one that really fits your bill. And when I see that light go on, when I see that agent connect those dots, then I'm like, all right, this is going to be fun. We're gonna work together for a long time. And obviously, I scream it from the mountaintops. My agents are sick and tired of hearing it, that I don't like working with door openers, that, if you're not building a relationship, if you're scared to pick up the phone, if you get an email from a client and it has their phone number on it and you decide to email them back instead of calling them, there's a door that you can exit, knock yourself out, find another place. Like that, real New York is not the place for you. If you pick up that phone, you call them, you spend 45 minutes listening to them, hearing what they're actually looking for, building a relationship, seeing how this is a situation where you don't just transact once, but you transact with them through their entire real estate, endeavor. Like that is the agent that I want to work with.
Yeah. People don't want to change providers. I don't want to change I just came from the dentist. I've been with my dentist for 15 years. My dentist is the only dentist I know, and he's not the only one that does this, but it's the only one I know. He does all his own cleanings. And when I first worked with him, or when I first came to him and he did that, I always had a hygienist that had done that at other places. And when I went to him, I think it was maybe the second or third time I went. So it was probably a couple of years at that point. I said, just out of curiosity, why do you do your own cleanings? He goes, well, what else am I going to do? And he sort of looked at me like, why wouldn't I do my own cleanings? And I said, well, I've been to a lot of other dentists and they don't do their own cleanings. He said, yeah, he goes, it tends to create a lot of loyalty. He says, number one, it's cost saver for me, so I don't have to pay a hygienist, and that's significant. But he goes, I like doing it. He goes, it's my job. And I went, wow. And I thought, oh, I'm never leaving this guy. Like this guy's so into his job. He's doing his cleanings. Like, and his wife is also in the practice. She does all her own cleanings. They don't even have a hygienist and they're super successful. And I just went in a good, I'm not here to criticize other dentists that don't do it that way. Like whatever you want to do, great. But I'm never leaving that guy because that guy cares so much about his patients that he's like, I don't even trust that a hygienist is going to do a good job. And he even said that he's like, no one's going to do as good a job as I can. And so
what I see, man, he's doing a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Thanks. But it's true, right? And it's like we don't want to look for a new dentist. We don't want to look for a new doctor. We don't want to look for a new real estate agent. We want to hopefully choose a great one and then have that great one time and time again, even after they've worked with us, they're contacting us. They're staying in touch. How's it
Hmm.
going? How's the apartment? How's the new condo? How's everything going? Hey, you've and I'm sure your team is doing this. You've got account managers. You've got people to make sure you're checking in with those tenants. You're checking in with the landlord. Hey, how's everything going? You're
Hmm.
making sure that tenant knows. Hey, if you're thinking about buying when this lease is up, we're talking. Like we're gonna talk. We're gonna figure this out for you. If you want to stay put, great. If we're finding another apartment too, but you guys are keeping those relationships strong. So let's talk a little bit about client loyalty. Sort of,
Hmm.
what is your opinion on that? Obviously, you have very strong client loyalty. You have developers that continue to work with you, as well as the tenants themselves. So, what's your philosophy around client loyalty?
I can tell you first off, my business partner and I, we very much have a similar mentality on how we treat our clients and how we make sure we maintain that client loyalty. We've always put the commission last. We've always put the relationship first. Whatever we need to do to make sure that we are transacting for this developer or landlord, this client, we will do. One of the best compliments I've ever gotten, a client that I worked with 12 years ago, and I've transacted with them many times in New York and in the Hamptons, was moving to another market. And they actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, I found out that New York has reciprocity with this other market, and this is how you can get a license and represent me to help me buy the house that I want moving forward." And we've gotten time and time again. We have a landlord that we worked with one of their properties for the longest time. This was a landlord that became a good friend and mentor to us. Worked on one of their properties during COVID. When everyone left the city, he represented a lot of his own product. He's like, I don't want to work on my product anymore. Here's 50 of my buildings.
Wow.
One building became 50 because we made sure to put the relationship first and do the right job, which we're extremely proud of. But once again, the commission never gets in the way. It's all about the relationship. Rob and I will go to hell and back. When we first started, we were mopping apartments. We were cleaning bathrooms. There really was nothing beneath us. And until this day, we're always happy to jump in the weeds for our clients and make sure they know that we're going to put them first.
And that's really important for our listeners to understand, especially with developers, with investors. They don't want to be working with lots of different real estate agents, and they certainly don't want to be bouncing between them. They want
Mm-hmm.
somebody that is tried and tested and goes, "Oh, thank God, I got the best guy. I just got to go out and find
Mm-hmm.
deals. I'm going to go out and find deals and do my investing thing." And then I got the team to hand it over to. And so you are absolutely right. I cannot tell you how many agents I have known over the years who just started contacting investors and developers and saying, please give me a chance. I'd love to try to rent one of your properties. And they do. And they go, eventually they do such a good job that the person goes, you got to talk to my buddy, or he's an investor too. Or as you know, the developers all know each other. And also too, they want everybody wants good work. So they'll want to know, like, great, maybe they don't want to spend time sourcing tenants, and probably they don't. And so this is where you do such good work that investors are always looking for their next deal. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's really a smart opportunity, because a buyer or seller, primary residence owner like myself, I'm only moving once every 5 to 10 years, maybe. I'm in a major metropolitan area. I'm not moving that much, because it's just too much to move. And but if I was an investor, I would always be looking for deals. So you're really teaching your agents and your business as well to just make those relationships so strong, because those investors are always growing. They're always looking for more opportunity. So
Mm-hmm.
I love that is your philosophy. It's again a bit of a paradigm shift, where realtors often just look at the end user as the only real relationship. And yes, that's important too, of course, because that can lead to more referrals and lots of things. But certainly getting in with investors talk, and they all want great brokerages and great agents. And
Yep.
I love that you've done it. So, Lou, I think this is a great place for us to wrap up. I want to thank Lou on behalf of everyone who is listening. We really appreciate Lou Adler and his team at Real New York for coming on and spending some time with us, giving our listeners his insight and experience and guidance. And there's a lot of great tips that you provided. So thank you. On behalf of Lewis and myself, we thank the audience. We appreciate you. You're the reason we keep doing this show. So please continue to listen, and also share this episode with a friend. if you are an agent and we work with other agents in your office or just meeting other agents, say, hey, I listened to this podcast, check it out. We would appreciate that. Our advertisers would also appreciate that. So please share it with somebody that you know. And also, we just want to say thank you to everyone. We appreciate this. This is a tough market. So everybody go out there, do the activity that the other agents aren't willing to do, and you will be successful. Lou, I don't know if you have had this experience, but I've noticed that all of the top agents I talk to, especially the ones on this show, this year, they're all doing great. Almost everybody I know is doing great. It's like some of them this is their best year ever. And then I talk to an agent who isn't, a top producer, and almost all of them are saying this is the hardest year ever. So it's amazing. I'm like, it can't be both. It's got to be one or the other. And it is amazing. I'm sure you've had that same experience.
I promise you the opportunities are out there.
Agreed. And if you are an agent in the New York area and you think, boy, Lou Adler and Real New York, this is the kind of firm I want to associate with. I want these kind of opportunities. I want to prove to these guys that I can be trusted with their relationships, their developments. I'm going to bring them business as well, and I want to grow. This is a great opportunity to reach out and, reach out to Lewis, reach out to Robert, his partner. They are always looking for talent, right? Every business is always looking for talent. So reach out to them. Follow him on Instagram, Lou Adler, at Lou Adler on Instagram. And Real New York is the company. They're amazing. And again, a success story, 13 years, 150 agents, incredible. I know what it took to get us to 150 agents, and it isn't easy. So I applaud you. You've seen a lot of brokerages come and go. You're doing it, and you guys are doing it the right way, and you are actually providing real value to your agents. So if you are a New York agent, you got to check these guys out. If you're not working for them today, you probably want to consider putting them on your radar to try to impress them. So maybe they would give you an invitation one of these days. So Lou, thanks so much. On behalf of everyone, thank you. And we will see everybody on the next episode. Thanks, Louis.
Thank you, DJ. Take care.